Now going to be a very interesting session, a very engaging session, where we've got incredible tales from Bollywood that'll be shared with us. And we've got featuring in this little session, film actor, speaker, and film producer, Tisca Chopra. So if I could get the whole house to please give her a rousing round of applause. I'd like to request Tisca to please come up on stage, and having a conversation with her is Madhavan Narayanan. So Madhavan, please come up as well.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I can't thank Tisca enough for literally doing a Shivratri to be at Knowledge Factory. You know, there are actors and actors, but there is a philosophy of Knowledge Factory behind Tisca Chopra being here, which is that we look for that kind of people who have a mix of the cerebral, the glamorous, and the introspective, and she fits it perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I didn't even know till today that she had actually got a literature degree from Hindu College, but something I knew. So the topic, I wanted her to go solo. For some reason, she wanted a coffee table or chat format, because I know that she can speak very well without a beast like me standing near a beauty, but or sitting. I won't waste time, and I have a few questions which are more like cues, but I hope she will speak on. And Rini has just whetted my appetite by saying so many more things that I wish I could go on for another 1 hour, but we have another great speaker, Varun Gandhi, after this. So, very quickly, what does it mean, Tisca, for a non-filmy person, which is what I see you as, to have made such a big mark in Bollywood? You know, it's a discovery of Bollywood as I see it. How do you, I mean, let's go back a bit and just get your views. Do you see yourself as a typical filmy person to start with?
You know, what a filmy person used to be. First of all, thank you, Rini, for the wonderful, wonderful introduction. And thank you for having me here. It's an honor in every way. And I hope that tales from Bollywood don't make sure that I never work in Bollywood again. You know, that's always a danger once you start sort of giving the insider's point of view. So I will try and straddle the truth and interestingness, and still trying to keep my job at the same time. So when I joined the films, it was the 90s, and my father was an educationist, is an educationist, and for somebody who came from that sort of background, when I first came to Bombay, you know, one of the most, you know, I think I learned one of my early lessons on my first day on a film set, and that wasn't even my own film set. So a director had called me and said, come and meet me on shoot. And it was raining, and they had put up these tarpaulin sort of tent type things. And so this spot boy took a shine to me. He said, Madam, आप नवी नवी आई हैं बम्बई में, आप इधर बैठिए, मैं आपको आर्टिस्ट के टेबल का खाना देता हूँ. So I realized that there was an artist ke table ka khana, and there was a not artist ke table ka khana. And as I was sitting there, he said, ये फिश है, बम्बई का बहुत फेमस फिश है, आप ये खाइए, ये बड़ा टेस्टी होता है यहाँ पे. And as I was eating that, I saw this huge snaky queue where there was, you know, it was drizzling. And so a lot of these junior artists and small part actors were queued up to eat their food. And I looked, and I suddenly saw this face that looked extremely familiar, and I sort of craned my neck, and I was trying to place him, and I was like, so that spot boy came along, Madam, आज गुलाब जामुन है, आप ये भी खाइए. So as I was doing that, I said, ये कौन है, इनको देखा हुआ है. So he said, Madam, ये भारत भूषण है, पहले टाइम में बहुत इनका अच्छा टाइम चला था, पर देखो ना अभी तो, if you remember films like Baiju Bawra, super hit films, and he was standing in the junior artist queue waiting his turn to get served food. And
very disturbing.
Very disturbing. And he said, but the spot boy came out with the ultimate Bombay philosophy. He said, पर क्या है मैडम, आजकल इतनी गर्दी है, गर्दी means भीड़, बहुत भीड़ है, आजकल क्या है मैडम, बड़ी गर्दी है, टाइम तो अच्छा नहीं है, पर काम तो है, काम तो कर रहा है. So, you know, that's the sort of thing that Bombay trains you for.
It's a Kagaz ke full moment in this.
Yeah, yeah.
How-
It was my first day ever on a film set, and this is what I saw and heard. And so, yes, starting off on that slightly heavy note, that's
Did that bring down your optimism or confidence, or did that make you more grounded?
I think what it did to me was that it told me that, you know, none of this is really real. It's quite the bubble. So it is, you have to not take the euphoria too seriously or take the downs too seriously. It's all par for the course, and just let it happen. Enjoy what you can.
So you're not your typical actor in that sense of being starstruck in that sense, yeah? Yeah.
It is fun. It is fun when you have a high. There is no question about it. And it is slightly not so much fun when you are at a time when you're struggling to get work and, you know, you're trying to make things happen. But the one thing that I did in the past couple of years is that took the reins in my hand by writing and producing. So now I'm not really waiting for anyone to give me a role. If you don't give me a role, maybe I'll give you a role. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's okay.
You know, that, you know, I saw her in this fantastic Churi. She plays the avenging wife of, you know, getting even at the woman that her husband falls for. Are you anything like that? You know, it's a wonderful character. I loved it.
Best person to ask is my husband.
So I wanted to egg you on a bit. You know, what are the other discoveries you made? Something which you would call counterintuitive, something that you bought, the strange things about Bollywood, apart from this whole being fed gulab jamun while you saw a star of yesteryear standing in a queue. Is there anything else? Is Bollywood as unprofessional as it is made out to be? I mean, people say, on the one hand, there is now a studio system. On the other hand, they say it's all disorganized. Camp chalta hai, loyalty chalta hai. What is your assessment? What has been your experience as somebody in?
The latest buzzword, or the buzzword a few months back, was nepotism, which I'm sure you've all heard enough about. So here's my perspective on that. Film shooting is extremely hard. It is hard to the point, so nobody makes a story about a man going to office, holding a briefcase, catching a Uber or a train or a bus and going to work. There is no story there. But if he loses his briefcase and has to spend the rest of his day looking for the briefcase in the Uber, in the taxi, in the train, bus, whatever, and then it so happens that a smuggler also has the same briefcase, etc., and it starts raining in the middle, or, you know, there's a tsunami or there's a terrorist attack in the middle of all of this, that makes a film.
Is that a film script you just wrote?
So for me,
It's a very Bangalore story, I can tell you.
So for me, I think the idea is that because it's so hard, people want to be surrounded with familiar people. Because every single day when you join a new project, there's 150 new people who you're suddenly supposed to expose your innermost being and emotions. You're supposed to cry, you're supposed to take a shower, you're supposed to do whatever it is that you're doing, whatever sort of film that is, in front of 150 people. And that can be daunting. So people try and have familiar, likable, cocoon-like people around them that give them a sense of normalcy, comfort. So that's the idea of what you might call a camp. It is like anywhere else. People want to work with people who they're comfortable with and familiar with and feel they're synergized with.
So that sounds a lot like a Silicon Valley startup. You know, you've got to have that team spirit, and
yeah.
So the camp need not be that bad.
It's not. It's not. However, there was the other question that you asked.
Yeah, I said about any discovery you made along the way, and the studio system, I said.
Professionalism.
So,
I think professionalism is a very small word for the level of commitment that a film unit brings. It is the largest collaborative experience known to man. It's like without the implications of a heart surgery, say, for example, or a multiple organ transplant or something like that, because no one's going to die if your film doesn't do well. You'll just lose some money and some face, but the implication.
So much of it has to come together:
Resources,
energy.
ideas, story writing, color correction of the film, editing, background music, choreography, action, performance, direction, VFX, CG, all of that. It's huge. It's huge. And it's at every level. So it's at the level of script, it's at the level of pre-production, at the level of when you're shooting on set, then post-production, then release. So each of these layers has like its own sort of horizontal plane on which multiple people exist collaborating in order to make this possible.
Any media mass comm students out there? I think this is a wonderful orientation she gave to the complex art of filmmaking. But that's true, you captured it very well in terms of a certain framework. But it's full of crazy people, isn't it? I heard stories about crazy directors, Me Too, casting couch. Let's get a bit more spicy here.
So yes, not now anymore. Everyone's petrified. So that's not happening anymore. And there's a certain someone who I can't name who paid off an actress because she was about to spill the beans on Twitter. So he paid her off a very tidy sum. And I, for one, am very pleased. I mean, you better pay. If you've troubled someone so much, it's fine.
Oh, that's the churi coming out.
So it used to be pretty bad. It was a sense of entitlement. It was also a very uneven playing field, because the whole... So when I joined films, it wasn't the best sort of most educated people who were coming into films. And it wasn't the best sort of people who were creatively inclined. There were people who were more glamour struck and more, interested in businessmen, sort of, sometimes wearing white shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. there was a lot of that.
Hint.
There was a lot of that. And I think it's quietened down since. But what is crazy about eccentric personalities and crazy people is that, because it's such a... the director has a vision in his head. He's got an idea about how this character or that character should look. So I've been told, your face is too big. I mean, where does one go with that? What can you do with the size of your face? Your size, you can still do something about the size of your body, but what can you do about the size of your face? And then somebody else said that your nose is too long. So, and another person said, "Aapki naak theek hai, baki ka muh theek nahi lag raha." So, I mean, so it's just what people are thinking in their head, what they want you to fit into in the scope of what they're trying to do. There's people who've told an actress friend of mine that you need to learn English, you need to learn how to walk in heels, you need to change your diction, you need to change your hair, and you need to get a better stylist. I was like, basically, he's not looking for you. If that's what he wants to do, then it's not you. So yeah, there is an extreme amount of personal opinion and whim, because it is somebody's imagination. And if you fit in, you fit in, and if you don't, there's precious little you can do to that.
That's true. I think, yeah, in that sense, it's difficult to be something that you're not, but the whole world expects you to be all the time. It's more than role. That brings me to roles, I know we loved you in Tare Zameen Par, obviously. I think a lot of people will agree. But there is still, looking at you, I know there is much more capability. I'm now sounding like one of those directors. But so I'm keen to ask you, we heard about your directorial ventures, but before going there, want to ask you, what's the kind of role that you love to do which hasn't come your way yet? A dream role or something?
It's very interesting.
With your nose.
With my own nose. So I was on this panel discussion with Anupama Chopra, Karan Johar, Deepika, and Priyanka Sinha Jha, who heads Screen magazine. And we were on this panel, and Karan was talking about the fact that certain faces light up the screen. You know, there's a certain kind of beauty that he looks for in actresses, which glistens and glows on the big screen. And this was about maybe 5 years ago. And I honestly completely disagreed with him on that, because I felt that, yes, a certain kind of film needs beauty, but there's also people looking for, I think we're all looking for cracks in humanity. I think we're all looking for that human being who's vulnerable and whose heart we can see and who suddenly we want to reach out and protect, or we hate but strangely love. You know, that's
A little literary, a certain grey.
a gray, you know, somebody who makes us feel good, bad, scared, vulnerable, protective. That evoking that feeling is I think an actor's job within that story. Because if I were to play a villain, saying, oh my God, and judge the character and say, oh my God, this is really a nasty person, I must have my own logic for doing what I'm doing, because that's the way it is. A villain is not thinking he's being a villain, he's just being him. And
अपनी कहानी में सब हीरो होता है.
Bilkul, bang on, bang on. So yes, so then in that sense, I think you know, there's been a fair amount of glamorous work that I've done. But Tare Zameen Par sort of changed the trajectory for me, because people started seeing me as more of a performer who wasn't really overly caught up with the prettification of oneself, which I think is a serious problem. I mean, if you look at people there, one person looks the same as the other. It's, you know, it's only when they've done 5, 6, 7, 8 films that you can tell this actress from that actress or this actor from that actor. Everybody's, you know, Prakash Jha once said very interestingly, he's saying, इसने जितना प्रोटीन खाया है ना, इस एक्टर को अगर मैं कास्ट करूँगा तो उसके बाप की 6 महीने की सैलरी होगी, इसने जितना प्रोटीन खाया है. You know, so you can't really have, everyone can't have a six-pack, you know, sculpted body. You have to be a normal person as well. If a role needs it, you go in that direction, but that can't be the definition of what you're doing at all times as an actor. And I think the film business is coming along very, very sharply to that point where films like Badhai Ho or films like Andhadhun or Stree, where the story is at the heart and not you know, your star vehicle, where the person is doing what they did in the last film and you can't really tell which film it was. They just keep, you know, the clothes change, the hairstyle changes, but pretty much everything is the same.
The script is becoming the hero in a sense.
It is. Yeah. It truly is.
That's a wonderful point for me to come to what you're doing right now. You're doing a web series, you're trying to direct, presumably they are offbeat and not your typical routine. So tell us a bit more about what you're doing right now. It should be interesting.
So in 2016, there was this monologue that I used to perform at Prithvi Theatre. When I started at Prithvi, they wouldn't take me wouldn't let me perform inside Prithvi Theatre, which is a very big theatre venue in Bombay. I'm sure most of you know that. So I was heartbroken because, you know, it's iconic and I wanted to perform, but all the theatre groups were full and they don't let a solo performer perform inside the theatre because you don't have the wherewithal to, you know, make a roster, dates, etc., etc. So they said, okay, well, if you're so enthusiastic, there's this sort of platform outside Prithvi. If you like, you can perform here. And if you hold people's interest, you hold it. And if you don't, you don't. You know, people are going to be on their cell phones, smoking, having some, you know, whatever's going on. So try your luck. So there was this piece by Bhisham Sahani, which I started performing, and I used to perform that as a 60-year-old woman with joint pains. And that then over a period of time evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved. So that little monologue then became a kind of a very Roald Dahl-esque, dark story called Chutney. And then I wrote it, produced it, and also acted in it. And this woman was very, very ordinary looking. In fact, on the other side of ordinary, she was fairly not nice looking. Yeah, you've seen the film.
No, I haven't. I've only seen Churi. I missed Chutney
Chutney.
for some reason.
Okay. So that then, because she was such a plain, almost ugly-looking character, that was my. It was an experiment. It was to see that if people relate just to beauty, does everybody have to look like this light-eyed, light-haired, 20-inch waistline goddess to be able to fire people's imagination, or does something else also work? Can it work? So I had this hunch that it might work. And then we released the film, and in one night we had 1.5 million views, and in 7 days we had 12 million views, and today it's at 123 million views, which is enormous.
There you have it, de-glamorization by a glamorous person. It's a great strategy. But tell us about what you're going to do next before we run out of time.
So we might be taking the Chutney franchise forward and make a feature film. But I'm very excited by the idea of playing real flesh and blood, vulnerable people with fatal flaws.
And the web series format gives you a new opportunity there, right?
Not necessarily, in the sense that you could do film, you could do web, you could do whatever. Web has more, it's more interesting in one way for an actor, is that you get a significant length of time to be able to evolve the character.
Something tells me that you should make Lady Macbeth in Hindi before Vishal Bhardwaj does.
He's already made it, Maqbool.
Maqbool
was Macbeth.
Yeah, of course, he did, but, you know, a woman-focused thing, I meant, in the sense that the grey, the way you brought it out so well, you know, that was more about this thing, you know, the way an out of the character or unpredictable woman comes in. I was reminded of that, you know, in a focused sense. Is there any other Shakespearean character you recall, a woman who like that from your college days?
I think Richard III could be a woman. Why always think of, you know, we're in a time of androgyny, we're in a time of mixing things up.
LGBT era. Okay. That's, yeah, we're running short of time, but I'm very keen to ask you one question that, you know, there is Deepika Padukone and there is you. You know, there is a certain breed, this is my very subjective opinion, but I think the audience will agree. You have a wonderful sense of combining dignity with glamour and staying in the film industry and yet being a little out. Is there some do's or don'ts there? How do you manage this whole combination of being yourself?
That's very sweet. That's very sweet. I think dignity is something that you're... for a long time, I didn't respect myself enough in the business. I judged myself by the standards of the business. Looked from the outside in. This is how I'm seeing myself. This is what I'm supposed to be. When I stop being what I'm supposed to be and just let myself be, is when you understand that there's really not that much extra that you need to add to yourself in terms of who yourself is. I mean, sure, you need to dress well and, you know, change into heels if you're coming on stage. So we all do that. I've got my flats lying around just outside. But
she's giving away the secrets, yeah.
That's okay. Everybody knows the secrets. We all do it. We all go to weddings, all the ladies, hey. You know, we know how heels kill us. So I think the idea that I want to, and I discuss this a lot whenever I'm asked to speak, and I think it applies across genders, but more particularly to women, is that one of the feelings that is very corrosive, and the Indian psyche tends to have a lot of that, is guilt. You know, we have a lot of guilt for everything. My daughter's 6 years old, so if I'm working, then I'm guilty because I'm not at home. And if I'm at home, I'm guilty because I'm not self-actualizing enough. If I'm not dropping her to school, if I'm not doing, you know, so there's guilt for everything. You know, so if you look at it, there's a sense of, oh, but there's so much more I should do. I'm not doing this. So I've stopped, or consciously tried to stop doing that. It's such a part of the zeitgeist of who we are that one tends to, you know, think that that is okay. It's not okay. there's no need to be guilty. It's a very, very short life, and one needs to just live it absolutely openly and freely and not care about what is expected, unexpected, this, that, the other. I think all of that is bunkum.
Wonderfully put. I think how many Bollywood actors do we know who use words like zeitgeist and carry it off? You know.
A lot, you'd be surprised.
Thank you. I think you've been wonderful on the dot. And just one, do you have any word of advice for anyone out there at the back wanting to go knocking at the doors of Bollywood? And then we'll wind up.
Hi, my name is Varun. My question was that being someone who has worked in both the North Indian and South Indian film industry, what do you think one can learn from the other, both in terms of progression of the story and also the experiences actors have working in those industries?
Any other questions? We'll club the three questions together. Any lady next?
During my early years of career, I was denied an opportunity by a woman colleague and a boss because they felt I did not look a certain way to service a client. You know, I wasn't groomed well in terms of my outlook. And I felt that rejection basically makes you stronger. And in Bollywood as well, you know, when you're trying to fit into a certain criteria, I'm sure, you know, rejection does make you stronger there as well. But there's a long time between acceptance and rejection. And what would be your advice to people to say, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, good question. The last question, yeah.
So a question, my name is Tathagat, question to Tisca ji. So you mentioned right at the beginning the Bharat Bhushan story. So my question to you is, how do you handle fame? You know, I mean, when you are in this world of glamour, it's very difficult to handle fame and popularity. And I'm sure your handling of the situation has changed over time. And now when you relate to that Bharat Bhushan story going into the future, how will, you know, you will be able to handle fame and popularity is my question.
So Varun, I think you asked the story about North versus South. How much time do I have?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So I'm going to try and cover all three questions as best as I can. The South Indian film industry, I worked in Telugu and Tamil, Kannada as well. I find Malayalam as well, actually. So the South Indian film industry is extremely professional. They do not go on flaws till they are certain that they will finish in 30, 35 days, 40 days max. It's an in and out scenario. The director's vision is paramount. They almost venerate the director. There's not too many questions that are asked of the director, etc. It is a top-down system. The North or the Bombay film industry, I can't say North because there are several industries. There's Bhojpuri, there's Punjabi, there's several others in industries. So Bollywood, where I primarily work, is getting there in terms of organization. It's not yet as organized as the South Indian film industry, which is very, very strict in terms of time. You know, 1 o'clock is lunch, lunch means lunch, and you could be in the middle of the most important scene. It won't shift by more than 5, maybe 10 minutes. That is how professional the South film industry is, across languages. Bombay is still whimsy-driven. You know, if things are not working out, a day could be called off. It said, well, things are not looking good today. Let's come tomorrow and try and have a go at it again. Bombay is now having a sort of breaking point in terms of the kind of scripts that are happening for women and the roles that are there for women. They're getting more nuanced, more calibrated, more detailed. But in the South, at least in the formula Telugu films, the structures are very, very set. There's the larger-than-life hero. There's his pretty girlfriend, who he must save in one manner or the other. There's the comic. There's the villain, and there's the girl's evil aunt. And these are very stock-type characters, especially in Telugu. So I think that's something that needs to change, because I find technicians absolutely brilliant. Camera work, music is just outstanding in the South. Their some really radical stuff. Rajamouli, for example, Bahubali, Iga, films that he's made are just splendid. So we can learn a lot in terms of technique and music from the South. So that's my take on. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. We'll move to the next one. Rejection.
Sheetal, is that right?
Yeah.
Hi, Sheetal. So you asked acceptance versus rejection. I think the first and foremost, and this is a really short answer, I don't think it's about outer acceptance or rejection. It won't affect you too much if you are accepting yourself. Because you know that you're unique, and in that sense, what you bring to the table is only what you can bring to the table. There isn't a single other person in the world who can bring that to the table. The time between acceptance and rejection can then just be a game of patience more than a game of self-questioning. Because if one starts questioning oneself, am I right, am I wrong? Which is also not too bad sometimes, because one can learn and evolve, because it isn't always about unchangeables. It's not always about your nose, that your acceptance or rejection is there. It could be about tardiness or efficiency or the number of hours that you can put in or a certain skill set that you need to learn. So I think it goes either way.
And how do you handle fame? No, please. We have enough time for that. We'll learn from Bollywood rather than South Indian cinema, delaying it by 5 minutes. Yeah.
So handling fame is, Tathagat, I think you asked that question, yes. It's a drug. It's quite simply just a drug. And it's far worse than much maligned drugs. Fame is a drug we seek actively. We want it, we want everyone to recognize us, social media, all of that. It's like, how many likes do you have? How many people are following you? How many people are following you in real life? How much are you written about? How much are you photographed? I think it's crap. It's just crap. It means nothing, because when you're going to bed or when you just wake up, you have 5 minutes or 3 minutes between that wakefulness and sleeping period where you're talking to yourself. And that time with yourself is where reality comes in and tells you where you are headed, in which direction, and how far are you from where you need to be or where you need to go. And I think that inner sense, that compass that points to your own true north, is what you need to be focused on. Of course, we live in a world which is inhabited with people, and it's nice to be liked and loved always, but I think it's nicer still if you can love yourself, because then even if people love you or they don't, you're okay.
Wonderful. That's a great note to end. Love yourself. And we have an actor, a filmmaker, and an unrecognized motivational speaker. I think we will, and she lost her sleep, and yet we could go on, and she's looking still fresh. Give her a big hand, everyone. And we will jump straight from Bollywood to Bharat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.